How's everybody doing? Haven't been able to see any of you guys. Good? Good, good. Okay. So I'm gonna start. Well, first of all, the topic that I am going over is the difference between animals and humans. Can everybody hear me good too?
Yep.
Okay. So, it's a topic that really interests me and has interested me for a while. So we're gonna jump right into it with a video by a pastor named Erwin McManus. He did a TED Talk. He has a church in Los Angeles. He's a really cool guy. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of him before, but I'm going to pull up this video by sharing my
Oh,
screen.
let me enable that real quick.
Oh,
Sorry, I should have been looking ahead at that. Should be good now.
do this. Can everybody see it?
Yep.
Okay. So it's about a 9-minute video. It's well worth it. And then I guess let me start it here and see. Is that loud enough for everybody?
Particular greatnesses, but for me, even being human was a challenge. And I didn't know this at 12, that we're that one unique species that doesn't seem to know how to be human, even though that's the only species we are. Isn't it odd that humans go to therapy to figure out what it means to be human, how to do human well? I just don't think there are killer whales going, I don't know if I got this right. I don't think there are giraffes going, have you looked at me? I could be a model, but just a neck model. That's about it. That's all I got. There's no zebra out there going, what am I? What does this mean? Am I black on white, white on black? I don't know. But we spend our lives trying to figure out how to do human. And if you have a pet, you realize that there are nuances of our humanity in our animals. If you have a dog, you see loyalty and love, and it reflects human characteristics. If you have a cat, you see disloyalty and indifference, just like you see in humans. We had a squirrel in our backyard, and that squirrel chose to leave its natural essence and choose a life of crime, and kept breaking and entering into our house, stealing things that no squirrel with any sense of self-respect would ever steal. And because we do not really believe in capital punishment, we captured our squirrel, put him in a cage, and put him in the witness relocation program. But not after I talked to him and said, what you're doing is wrong, man. Live up to what you're supposed to be as a squirrel. You never have those conversations, and yet we have conversations as humans describing ourselves as being inhumane. We never think of a tiger being inhumane if it rips a gazelle's throat. I remember putting my children watching National Geographic so we could watch something wholesome and healthy. We saw these baby elephants roaming across the prairie, and then all of a sudden, these baby lions came after them. You could hear this really elegant sort of NPR voice saying, and the baby lion cubs have to refine their hunting skills on baby elephants, though their claws are not yet capable of breaking through the strong elephant hide. And my children are freaking out, going, what is going on? I had to change the channel to HBO to watch something that wasn't as violent. And yet we never put that classification on any other species. Do you know why? It's because we humans have this unique capacity to imagine ourselves different than we are, better than we are. See, we humans have this unique gift known as the imagination. And I am convinced that what makes us uniquely humans is that we materialize the invisible. Doesn't that sound like a superpower? If you are a human being, you have the capacity. In fact, this is an inherent nature of being human. You materialize the invisible on an ongoing, regular basis, even though you may not realize it. See, as a human being, you imagine a world that does not exist. You imagine a future that has not been created. You imagine a life you've never lived. You imagine a self you have never become. And that imagination that we call ideals drives us. Sometimes they haunt us and taunt us, but they always woo us and call us, which is why the imagination is both a curse and a gift. Some of you know your imagination has been a curse. When you imagine yourself better than you are, when you imagine your life better than it is, when you imagine the world better than where you know it to be, it can become an incredible curse to all of us. There are some of us here that have been paralyzed because of our imagination. We've been lost in our darkest imagination. And I want to assure you, there is no creature on this planet having a crisis of imagination like a human being does. There's no gazelle saying, "Can't you see it? The routine, the redundancy, the monotony of life. We've sold out, man. We're trapped. The man has taken over. We need to rage against the machine." We get up, we eat grass, we hear the roar, we run. We don't look back. You don't look back, man. We pretend no one's missing. We eat a little more grass, we drink some water. Next day, repeat. Wouldn't it be great if some antelope got up and said, "I'm done. I'm done being the hunted. From now on, I'm the hunter. I'm going after a lion. Who's going with me?" It would be a one-day career. Whoa. He was good at catching that lion. And yet you will live your life always haunted by a sense of more. Of wondering if you've lived the life you were created to live, if you've ever stepped into the full potential of who you are as a human being. I think names are amazing. There are people whose names are like farmer and carpenter and smith. And you have those names because somewhere in your history, you had a great-great-great-great-grandfather who was a carpenter, and his son was a carpenter, and his son was a carpenter. And you had some ancestor who was a farmer, and his son was a farmer, and his family were farmers. And you have some ancestor that was a blacksmith. And so you had smiths from smith to smith. See, if beavers had last names, they would be Dam. You see, if you were a beaver, you would have one career option. You would be building a dam for the rest of your life. But because you're human, you can have the name farmer and become an architect. You can have the name carpenter, you can become a dancer. You can have the name smith and become an engineer. Because humans can reimagine who they are and create a future that does not yet exist. See, we live in the world of ideas and dreams and visions and thoughts. We are talking about a future that does not yet exist. And really, if anyone should be meeting about climate change, it should be polar bears and penguins, but they do not have the foresight or the personal responsibility to do something about the problems in the world. But we can see where this is going, and so we need to do something about it. I was in a conversation in Rio de Janeiro at TED. And one of my friends who invited me to Hong Kong came and said, what we really need is the highest level of human consciousness. We need the elimination of all thought. I said, when you said the elimination of all thought, do you also mean the imagination? He said, absolutely, we need to eliminate the imagination. He goes, but not only that, we need to eliminate all feeling. So now when you're saying, let's eliminate all feeling, do you also include love? He goes, absolutely, we need to eliminate all love, all thought and all feeling. I said, no, maybe I'm missing something here. But if you give me love and imagination, I can change the world. See, I am convinced that what we as humans bring that is different than every other species on this planet is in the same way that bees create hives and ants create colonies, humans create futures. And what we oftentimes underestimate is the human capacity to create a future that the world desperately needs. You see, evil men do not wait for permission to create what they imagine. But good people keep responding to the future as if we have no control over what's coming into the human story. We need to realize that it's time for us to embrace our responsibility, that we have been imagined to imagine, created to create, and that we are all works of art and artists at work. And that there is no question whether we will create. The only question is, what will we create? There's some of you here who are haunted by your imagination. You imagine a world without poverty. You are haunted by your imagination. You imagine a world without injustice. You are haunted by your imagination. You are haunted by an imagination of a world with peace, without violence, with equality, with economic prosperity for everyone. You imagine a world where we take social responsibility and environmental responsibility. You imagine a world that has never been known, has never been experienced, has never been created. But you know that it's more important to imagine and create than to reflect and regret. The question is not whether we can create or whether we will create, but what kind of future will we create? God bless.
Okay, so I would love some feedback and comments on that from you guys, because I absolutely love that video. I got so much out of it.
This is what happens when you ask for feedback and comments.
Come on, you guys.
Come on,
there was
people.
a lot in there. Somebody ask a question. Somebody bring up a topic. What'd you like? What was a big point that stuck out to you, Tim?
Well, I liked bringing up how basically different humans are from everything else, but I actually didn't like how he never returned that to God. And when he's talking about all this stuff about a future and stuff, there was no God in that. There was no talking about, well, God is the one who gave us this ability or this future or anything like that. And
Right, and I do understand that. I think that his reason for that is, I don't think he wasn't at a church. He wasn't in his church, and I think that he was trying to accommodate his message for the crowd. He definitely could have probably mentioned God, but the biggest part of that I was hoping you guys kind of got out of it was like the differences between human and animal. Anybody else have any comments on that?
I think he's on to something. Imagination and creativity being uniquely human things.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that he talked about how imagination can be like a fuel for change, but it can also be, it can also create like, he used the word regret, I think, or like anxiety, like, because I think, and this is where the God thing comes in. There's another talk that I really like by Tim Keller, where the culture tells us to define ourselves and like kind of create who we are and then create a future, and that can become burdensome.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like if we have this imagination, this dream for the future, and we find ourselves not measuring up to bringing it into reality, right? I think that can cripple us and deflate us, even though on the other hand, it also motivates like a lot of people. And
Mm-hmm.
but so I guess to tie in Tim's comment, the way I feel like we can make peace with that as believers is to say, God has given us this capacity to imagine a better future and the ability to do something about it. But I think part of the human calling is realizing that we're still contingent. We still have to do that in dependence and maybe even in partnership with a power that's greater than us. And when we do that, I think then we can imagine and create without with and still have rest. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I see what you're saying. Matt, did you have something you want to say? Okay. What do you think, Grace? You always have good comments.
I really, it got me thinking about what he was saying, that like no other species will look at the world and think like this isn't what it should be. And I think that's just really important of how we just have this innate sense that like creation is not what it should be right now. And no other species is able to look at that and like want that change or long for something else.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that you made a really good point there, that, you know, we are the only species in the world that can sit here and contemplate and think about our decisions and think, wait, is this right? Should I be doing this? And that's a big responsibility, but it's also a beautiful gift if we utilize it in the right way.
Can I throw out a question?
Yeah.
Do you guys think that that sense of responsibility is tied to the fact that we were instrumental in, like the human race was instrumental in causing the problem?
I mean, I would answer that as to so when we took of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, we took on the responsibility of that good and evil, so we can have the ability to create that good, and then we have that ability to create that bad, so that all of the problems in the world and those big things that are going on, I mean, yeah, we are the leading cause of that, but we also have that opportunity to make it right.
Mm-hmm. And I think like that's one thing I've encountered a lot lately is this. It's one thing N.T. Wright talks about a lot, is like when God set up the cosmos and he made image bearers to take care of it, like he committed himself to working in the world through human agency. And he hasn't changed that. Like he delegated authority to humans and we blew it. And then he didn't say, okay, I'll just come clean up the mess. He goes to work continually through humans and ultimately through the true human to put things back right. And I think there's something, you know, related to that with what what's his name?
McManus.
McManus is saying is like, as part of that participation with God, like he's maybe the source of this vision of a better world, along with kind of our primal sense that it used to be that way. Yeah. You have some more questions from the room.
Matt?
So as you and Mark Taylor were talking about responsibility.
I can't hear you, Matt.
As you and Mr. Taylor were talking about responsibility, it dawned on me just then that that's the third thing that differentiates us from animals. Because creativity, imagination, and then the ability to love, and then the responsibility to do something with that. You could claim beavers just build dams, but it's not their responsibility to do that, it's their instinct.
Yeah, they just do it so they can survive, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. No, that's a good point, Matt. Okay. Is there any other questions right now? Because I'm gonna go on to the next part. Nobody else want to say? Nancy, did you want to say anything?
She said she texted in that her internet connection's kind of spotty.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I'm just gonna run over these notes that I have, and then we'll go to the conclusion. We'll take questions or notes then. So basically, there's similarities between humans and animals, and there's a lot, like McManus was talking about, there's loyalty that we see in dogs. There's also both animals and humans can exercise power, obtain knowledge, and even look out for the good of others. And I mean, it's to a finite degree for both compared to God, but both humans and animals do have emotions and have interaction with each other as well. So the differences, animals don't step out of their identity. So that's a really big problem that we see in today's world, is humans don't know who they are. I mean, as McManus was talking about, that's one of the big things that we struggle with. And like he was saying, a zebra doesn't wonder, about its black on white or white on black. Only humans do that to the zebra. So, and humans have opportunities. Like he said, if you're a beaver, you'd have one job, but humans can have all kinds of opportunities and jobs throughout their life. Humans can reimagine who they are. So you can have, for example, a drug addict who hits rock bottom and maybe almost dies, and they can become a very popular motivational speaker or leader out of that. Humans have foresight. We can tell that, hey, maybe something not so good or maybe something really good is going to come of this. Humans have personal responsibility. Macaws and monkeys aren't going to fix a deforestation problem. Humans are responsible for that. And then also humans, another pretty key difference here is that humans can enter into total, faithful, and fruitful union with another, so marriage, that resembles the total, faithful, and fruitful union of the Holy Trinity. So only humans can interact in that way. Yes, animals can like mate for life and things like that, but they don't create a future or create a place for God and his kingdom to come. Any questions or comments on that part? No? Okay.
I have a couple if nobody else does.
Go for it.
That last thing you said about faithful and fruitful union, I'm glad you brought that up, because I didn't really unpack anything when we talked about the relational image. Well, I maybe just glanced over it, but I think that's an important piece to pause and think about, is this idea that we in human relationships have an ability to mirror the faithfulness and fruitfulness of God. And I think that's a huge piece of what marriage is about. Like, there are some thinkers who talk about marriage as a sacramental thing, like something that conveys a spiritual truth. Mm-hmm. And like, I think that's part of why God designed that, the marriage and family, actually, as a way to visualize a sign, a symbol of this communion of persons that is himself, that produces more persons out of the overflow of love. And I think, it's just like, there's so much to say about that, which is a different conversation, but I just wanted to highlight it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, we're the only creatures who are given that privilege that we should be grateful for, of being able to be image bearers, and not only ourselves, but our family and our economies, our environment, our surroundings. Everything that we touch can be a image bearing thing of God. And so only us get that. And that's like such a profound thing. Any questions, comments on that part? Okay. So, this one was really interesting. I really found this quite awesome. So the Bible says that God is spirit, and the Bible also says that man is made in God's image. God being spirit, we are made in God's image. So humans uniquely possess a certain set of non-physical skills, completely different from animals, like language, logic, creativity, and a desire for justice, mercy, and truth. So that was a huge point for me, because God gave us those spiritual, non-physical things that he did not give to animals because we are image bearers. So us being able to write, us being able to have logic, us being able to have this conversation right now is an imprint of God's image. And that's a really huge thing to me. So animals do exhibit creativity as well, but not to the degree of humans. For example, birds use simple, small tools to build nests. Humans use very complex tools that make other tools that build tools. So there's a a lot of difference there. God gave man the distinct honor to be his image, showing his love on the earth. So animals don't get to show God's love. Animals are just what they are. Humans have the option and the choice to choose God's love and to choose to show his love, which is another huge difference. Man resembles God in having a free, rational, personal spirit, including a conscience, and our conscience has God's law written upon our hearts, which is the morality and justice and mercy that we learned about when we were reading C.S. Lewis, about that morality that is just imprinted in humanity, that you can't take it away. It's there. We know that killing somebody is wrong. So we have that. Animals don't. That's another big difference. So this is another cool point. Because man resembles God spiritually, because we're made in his image and God is spirit, we can fellowship with God. But to fellowship with God, the image of God in man must reflect God's holy character, especially in knowledge, righteousness, and holiness. This leads us into the heart of man, or the lev, which was one of the words from the word study for Deuteronomy. Our hearts are right, and our love reflects God's. And that's just, again, I've already kind of said that that's just something that animals don't have the option or privilege to do, is to be in right standing with God, because God didn't give them that privilege. They're animals. They run on instinct. So basically, to end it all, I just wanted to read Genesis 2:7, which is actually something that was in our last assignment as well. All right, so Genesis 2:7 says, "Then the Lord God formed the man of dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living creature." So if you actually read the verses before that about creation, you'll come to realize that man has something really special that animals did not get, and that is the fact that God breathed personally directly into us. Animals were created. God personally breathed the breath of life into us, which was his spirit. So that is a huge difference, and the biggest difference that ties all the different other differences together is that we are given the privilege to have a personal relationship with our Creator. That is the biggest end all be all that ties everything else in together. We have all these other differences because we were made for personal communion with God. And yeah, we are given the responsibility to rule the natural world, love each other, plan for the future, and love God every second of doing it. So that is the biggest difference, is that personal communion that animals don't have and we do. Any questions on any of that? Go into with looking into like physical differences between animals and humans, but the fact of the matter is that we are spirit first. We're an energetic spirit body before we are a physical. So the physical differences are the manifestation of the spiritual energetic differences. And so if you really want to get down to it, you have to go to God's word, realizing that he breathed life into us, bringing us to life as a living creature, which he did not do personally for the other creatures. Any comments, questions?
All right. Well, thank you very much, Hannah.